Great. All right. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday, folks. I am Jen Slattery with the League of Cities and Towns, and today we are pleased to have folks joining us from the Treasurer's Office. So I see Treasurer Diosa here. Thanks for being here. And also the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank. I'm just looking for my wonderful boss, Randy Rossi, to see if he would like to say anything.
No, thanks, Jen, for that. I mean, just being called great boss is cool. So make sure, Treasurer, you hear that, and Bill, make sure you guys are listening. But no, I don't want to tie up any of the time, especially too, Bill has buckets of money ready for munis, and I don't want to hold up the time and letting them know how to get it. So no, thank you, Jen, and thank you all for joining us.
All right, perfect. Well, with that being said, I will turn it over right away to Treasurer Diosa. Thanks for being here. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, Jen and Randy. It's always good to see you as well. And I want to acknowledge your amazing superstar president, Mayor Bob da Silva, who, my God, if we see him in Hollywood in a few years, it wouldn't be a surprise, right?
Nice.
Pictures with Hollywood stars, etc. But I want to thank you all for indulging us for a few minutes of your time today. But more importantly, I want to really highlight the exceptional work that Bill Fazioli is doing at the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank, and him with his financial background and municipal background has really pushed this organization to make it very, very useful for all municipalities around our state. So I want to give him a big shout. And it was at his request and the board's request to ask my office to introduce this resilient Rhody fund legislation that was introduced by Senator Chacon and Representative Cortravan, and we were able to be very successful in passing this legislation, which creates a new fund at the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank that municipalities can access for low interest loans to help combat what we're seeing today, very up close. Whether you believe in climate change or not, no one can argue that there's rising sea levels, that there's more storms, that there's more runoff water. And this is a unique opportunity for us to start making these investments now before it gets extremely costly and burdensome for our taxpayers. And we all know that things are starting to get a little tight again without all this COVID money and all this infrastructure money that was out there before. So having the ability to use this fund is going to be more critical than ever. And I think that what's useful for this is that this is going to be able to target stormwater mitigation, coastal erosion control, flood proofing of critical infrastructure, and urban greening and climate adaptive landscapes. So all that will help keep our state strong as far as infrastructure, but also making important investments so that these projects don't get out of hand and create more damage in the long run. So I want to thank you all. Please take advantage of this program if you can, but I'll turn it over to our rock star executive director, Bill Fazioli. Thank you all.
Thank you, Treasurer. I really appreciate that and appreciate your support of our initiatives and all of our monthly programs that we do to move money forward to our clients on a variety of funding opportunities. So we've prepared a very brief presentation today that we'll walk through. But basically, it's talk a little bit about a snapshot of what we did in fiscal 25, and then talk about some of the new funding opportunities in fiscal 26 going forward. But I'm joined here by Greg Miller, who will be discussing some changes to the Municipal Road and Bridge program. And then Anthony Hebert will talk about some changes to the resiliency program. And then at the end, we have a new funding opportunity we're announcing today for free technical assistance grants that we'll be promoting early next week. So great opportunity to speak to a number of participants. I have to admit, I'm surprised that we have over 40 attendees on one of the last weeks of August, but it's great to see that many people are here. So to get started, we'll just talk a little bit about folks who don't understand, don't maybe have an appreciation for the bank. But the bank was started in the late 80s, early 90s as the Rhode Island Clean Water Finance Agency, primarily to do drinking water and clean water loans through federal funding from the EPA. And then over the years, it's progressed and improved its offering of financing services to communities. Back in 2015, 2016, a number of new funding programs were added to the bank, including road and bridge, clean energy, brownfield programs, and now our big focus is climate resilience. So the bank has now become a really primary source to fund local projects at low interest loans and grants when they are available to us. At the close of fiscal 25, these numbers still look a little preliminary, but once we get through our audit, we think we had one of our strongest years in quite a long time, where we've exceeded over $200 million in financial assistance to our communities throughout the fiscal year. And that was a combination of loans and grants covering areas like drinking water, clean energy. CPACE funding has picked up quite a bit. That's funding to private businesses to do clean energy work. So we had a really strong year. In that, we also tapped into some federal funds to provide principal forgiveness, which is essentially forgivable loans to a number of large utilities that are doing wastewater projects and drinking water projects. So, and then we also committed about $15 million in emerging contaminant grants, which is essentially free money for small drinking water systems to deal with their PFAS solution. So it was a very strong year, and thanks to the leadership of our board, where our treasurer Diosa is a member, we really had a very robust year in committing funds and recognizing that a lot of times the key to getting programs implemented is resources, and we have resources that we have accrued over the years, and we want to make them available so you can achieve the results that you want to get your public capital projects done. So at this point, we'll talk a little bit about what's new for fiscal 26, starting with new changes for MRB.
Yep, thank you, Bill. So just a brief overview of what the Municipal Road and Bridge Revolving Fund is. That's money that we've allocated through our revolving loan fund to be used for a variety of road and bridge construction activities. These funds, like our other major programs, are oh, looks like we got someone new. So this road and bridge fund is subsidized at a 33% market rate. That's one of the benefits of being able to finance your construction projects through the infrastructure bank. And what is now a new use of the funds is that you could use these as your match for the state and RIIB's road grant programs, which can also then bypass the project priority list. So a little bit about the typical avenue. You would have to work with the bank and the Department of Transportation to get your project listed on the priority list. As I said a minute ago, if you're using these funds as a match for the state's grant program through RIIB, then you can bypass that mechanism, which would greatly reduce the amount of time needed to access the financing. And effective July 1st, 2025, was the authorizing legislation that allows that, which we posted right here.
Yeah, that's a great advantage that for this particular program, the legislature and the governor's office suggested that that the communities could just get a vote at their local town council or city council level to issue GO bonds rather than waiting to do a referendum. So that could really speed up the process. The communities could access this fund and come up with their 2/3 match for that Rhody Restore program. So we want to thank the League and the General Assembly for supporting that legislation that the governor put forward.
Right. And then here's just a list of typical eligible activities under the Road and Bridge Fund. So that can include, street paving and road striping, earthworks, excavation, utility relocation, enabling work like that, as well as sidewalk replacement and additions and green infrastructure for bicycle lanes and curbing, traffic lights, and then anything that would enable, the pedestrian enhancements. So signage, outside, street furniture like benches, and sidewalk appendages.
Yeah, and at this point, we'll talk a little bit about the Resilient Rhody Fund. Some of you might be familiar with it through the testimony we gave last year, but basically, it was a fund that we recognized that communities were coming to us with requests for financing for certain projects dealing with a lot of infrastructure that's dealing with climate adaptation and flood mitigation issues. And nationally, we see that this is a huge problem. The amount of billion-dollar weather losses has continued to rise through the last 30 or 40 years. Flood insurance rates are going very, very high in particular areas. There's a wonderful, this is a link to a wonderful website called First Street that does a lot of climate risk assessments, and they can zero in on particular properties. You can type in your address and your zip code and see what type of risk, climate risk your properties, susceptible to. So it's a great resource, but we're seeing that public assets are facing these increased risks. Property values are being negatively impacted due to, chronic flooding. Home insurance costs are rising, and in some cases, it's not available or it's becoming limited. As a number of properties are not getting renewed because of the increased risk to flooding and other, out west with the wildfires. The home mortgage market is experiencing disruption, not in Rhode Island, but in other states like Florida.
So what our approval says is that
so some properties are not able to get mortgages, and that could get home insurance, so that disrupts the mortgage inability. So, and then what we're seeing is that properties that are being impacted by flooding are happening in what non-designated flood zones. So a lot of the FEMA maps are very outdated in terms of representing what properties are subject to inland flooding. Primarily, flooding was always thought to be like a coastal issue, but now it's becoming an inland issue with a lot of inland flooding in urban areas. So that's why we felt the need that this is a rising factor that's not just happening in Rhode Island, but made nationally. So, and then at this point, Anthony will talk a little bit about what we've done through the RIIB to deal with resiliency projects and what we've done to date. And talk about some projects that we've highlighted that I think are really great examples of how when communities want to put a project together, the bank can be a great partner to make them possible.
Sure, thanks, Bill. Good morning, everyone. So I'll provide a background, like Bill said, and go into some project examples, and then the beginning of the RIIB program. So RIIB provides technical assistance and grant funding to help increase community resiliency. So we have a couple of different technical assistance programs that have been funded through federal opportunities and also state funding. And that's for project scoping, pre-design, planning activities to get projects off the ground. And that leads into our MRP grant program. So far, we've managed 5 rounds of MRP to date, and we've awarded approximately $24 million through MRP. In the last funding round, altogether, there's more than $80 million worth of requests that came in the past several rounds, most of which, unfortunately, we were unable to fund given the real rise in extreme demand we're seeing from the extreme weather, especially in the past 5 years that deal with a lot of flooding issues. So there's a lot of demand out there and a limited amount of grant funding, but we're still able to get a significant amount out the door to help these communities. The pipeline projects is expected to increase, especially in the years to come as severe weather events increase, and as the bank, in partnership with RIIB, is conducting a coastal resilience study. And this is expected to yield several, maybe up to 10 projects of public, really critical assets along the coast that are most at risk, and what steps are needed to safeguard them from severe weather events and flooding incidences. So the funding from MRP has come from the original funding. 2 rounds came from seed funding from the bank, and the rest comes from the state's green economy bond. And we were approved for another 10 million coming for MRP and RIF in this year for next year. Now I'll go into a couple different project examples of some of our success stories that we've seen through MRP. First one you're seeing here is Barrington, and this is at Walker Farm here along the coast. We awarded them a approximately $200,000 grant. And this supported the town with redeveloping a public park along the waterfront, increase resiliency, improve public safety, public access, and also redo the parking area there. It's been called Rhode Island's first floodable park, where it's made to flood during high tide and severe weather events. And then once the flood water is received, the park is perfectly usable and doesn't require a lot of maintenance or repairs afterwards and after the floods. And this project won an award from GrowSmart, their last GrowSmart Awards in 2025. Next project I'll highlight for MRP. This is a project that's recently completed up in Woonsocket that we had the pleasure of visiting this summer. This is one of the larger MRP awards that was done to date, and we awarded the city approximately $2 million. And this was to convert half of Truman Drive that you're seeing there on the right into a green linear park that's also along the Blackstone Lakeway. And this provided new green space, stormwater improvements, drainage improvements, and also other improvements included that it's quality of life for the residents, it's economic development opportunity for the town by linking it with the downtown business district. So you're seeing a lot of co-benefits beyond just water quality and stormwater with a lot of these projects. And next one I'll go into is looking towards the future. This is technically the first loan that we've done through the new Resilient Rhody Infrastructure Fund, RIF. And this was to the town of Bristol, which we did in April of this year. Bristol being a coastal community, they face obviously a lot of coastal threats from storm surge, and we're looking to fund a project in their Silver Creek watershed, which goes into the bay and causes a lot of flooding issues with public infrastructure and the roadways that you're seeing there right along the creek and adjacent to the bay. And they originally were looking for funding through the state's Clean Water SRF, which the bank co-manages with RIIB. But unfortunately, it didn't qualify for the SRF because the project was more focused on dealing with water quantity versus water quality. And that was part of the impetus for the creation of RIF, is that there are projects that don't qualify for normal SRF funding, but they are flooding projects that don't meet the water quality standards, but we still need to address those flooding concerns. So part of the reason why RIF is now come to fruition. So we did a $2 million loan to the town for stormwater and drainage improvements along the Silver Creek watershed, hopefully to reduce the risk of flooding to homes, businesses, roadways, and other public infrastructure. And the project is currently in design and permitting, and they expected to go out to construction for next year. And lastly, with the RIF, I'll go into a little bit more about the program. The grant funding for MRP through the state's Green Economy Bond, it was a great spark for resiliency funding around the state. It proved, it validated the effectiveness of doing these green projects, improved project efficacy, and provided a lot of pre-design, planning, design, engineering work to get the program off the ground. With RIF, we are now looking to scale the work that's been done with MRP and with that grant funding and create a self-replenishing, self-sustaining program that can deal with a lot of these larger projects that MRP and the grant funding couldn't address. The largest project that we funded through MRP was a little over $2 million, and that was to the city of Newport. And the second largest was to the Truman Drive project that we just saw out there in Woonsocket. And that's about the limits of the capacity where we were with MRP. But now with RIF and the funding that we can be made available through this new SRF and this revolving fund, we can do projects that are now $10 million plus and handle some of these larger systemic statewide issues that the grant funding couldn't address. And like I said before, the new SRF deals with the water quantity, it deals with flooding rather than just water quality, and opens up a whole new doors of projects that we can fund in the future.
Great, and that's really a good overview, Anthony. So the idea is to take the approach that we've had in place for drinking water and clean water projects for about 40 years and have this revolving loan fund set up specifically for resiliency projects, primarily for 3 reasons. One, as Anthony pointed out, a lot of these projects wouldn't be eligible for the federal program because they're not a pure clean water project or a drinking water project. They're sort of in between. So, and then we could really focus on nature-based and green infrastructure projects that we could fund through this particular program. And second of all is to increase capacity. The revolving loan fund model is very, very powerful. it has a very strong leveraging effect where basically $1 in loan funding can provide funding for $3 to $4 in projects. And when you carry that formula out, so $1 million can support $3 million in projects, $10 million can support $30 million worth of projects because of the revolving loan fund nature of the financing program. So we wanted to bring that approach to create this resiliency fund program. It'll still be some grant components with the infrastructure fund, where we'll, as Anthony pointed out, smaller projects, less than $1 million or so, or maybe 1.5 million could still be supported through grant funding. But some of the larger projects that some communities are talking about are in the multi-million-dollar range, and there's just no way the current grant program could keep pace with those funding demands. So we wanted to increase capacity, make it more sustainable, and then use the multiplier effect that revolving loan funds have had for 45 years to meet the demand. For example, on the drinking water and the clean water side, the banks have supported close to $2 billion worth of projects for drinking water and clean water projects for statewide because of the revolving loan financing model. If we had to do that on a grant basis, we probably would have been, the bank would have done a fraction of those projects. But you can see the impact of funding entities like Narragansett Bay Commission and Providence Water Supply, along with Warwick and West Warwick and Kent County Water, and Briscoe County Water, Pawtucket Water. These projects would have never happened if it was strictly done on a 100% grant basis, and that's why the revolving loan fund is that powerful vehicle we want to bring to the resiliency space. So we're hoping to do a call for projects sometime in late October of this year for resiliency projects. We're drafting rules and regulations right now that we'll be posting online for public review and public comment. But it's a very strong, powerful vehicle that we think will allow communities to tap into to provide a better solution for some of the larger scale projects that they're dealing with on the resiliency basis. And again, with the coastal resiliency study that's being done by DM and RIIB, which should be completed by the first quarter of 2026, we expect a very big pipeline of projects that are identified statewide that need to be addressed in order to deal with flooding, sea level rise, and things like also urban heat. The things are dealing with rising heat and all of that. So there's a number of issues that'll categories that'll be eligible for funding through this program. And then at this point, we just want to talk a little bit of a new funding opportunity that we're announcing. It's called the Community Project Assistance Fund. This will be live, we think, by early next week or the end of next week. But basically, it's to provide technical assistance, and this is a 100% grant. There's no match required to communities who are looking to do some sort of design, feasibility, needs assessment project for a facility that needs to do some pre-construction engineering, conceptual engineering and then they need some funding. So we were looking to we heard loud and clear from our communities that a lot of times they can't get projects past the initial study phase because they don't have enough money for the technical assistance. So the board was able to, thanks to the treasurer and other board members, allocate $500,000 of bank funding that we'll make available to communities on a rolling basis to apply for technical assistance grants, to hire engineers or planners or design teams to come up with areas that they might not have the resources on hand. So again, there's no match required. Priority is going to be given to some resiliency projects, but it could be for any general municipal local infrastructure project, not just resiliency. So we're hoping that the applications will go live August 30th. Awards will be made up to $50,000, subject to board approval. We hope to get availability of funds out to people by November of this year. And again, the applications will be done on a rolling basis throughout the fiscal year. And if the demand continues, I suspect the board will make this an available program in upcoming fiscal years, not just in the current fiscal year, but even if the demand exceeds the $500,000 allocated, the board might be willing to put more money into it. But we hope to make this a permanent funding program for communities to tap into for some of this free technical assistance. And Greg, you want to talk about some of the other funding areas that we provide?
Yeah, so, we had kind of highlighted 3 programs today, with them being relatively new and changes made, but as many of you on the call know, the infrastructure bank, as we've been around for a few decades now, has a lot of resources within your traditional financing needs. So if your community has any requirements or needs to upgrade your drinking water supply lines, treatment plants, wastewater treatment facilities, as well as a need for resources to allocate towards residents to be able to upgrade their septic systems or tie into the sewer lines. If your school facilities or your buildings have energy efficiency upgrades that need to happen, we're a resource for all of those things. And you can find out more details about those solutions on our website at RIIB.org. We have a great landing page that will cover the details. But in general, if there's any sort of work that you're anticipating your community needs to do, you don't know where to start, we'd love it if you would reach out to us, and we can get that conversation rolling.
Right, and then one of the areas that we see a lot of growth is in our CPACE program. In the last couple of years, we've seen some sizable loans, and that's primarily funding for private companies looking to do energy efficiency upgrades, either for retrofits or new construction. So if you have any local economic development, folks who want to give us a call and learn about how this can be an incentive to help local companies either stay or move into your community, we'd love to talk to you about CPACE. Sometimes even the Chamber of Commerce would be a good opportunity to have them hear about it. It's not just for large companies, but it can be for smaller scale manufacturing companies, warehousing companies. We've done projects as low as $300,000-$400,000 up to $30 to $40 million for this program. So it's a very powerful tool for private entities. And with that said, we have one last announcement, Anthony, if you want to talk about this.
Sure. The bank is happy to announce that we're hosting our annual seminar, and this is going to be on October 15th, approximately from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. The theme is Navigating Change of Purpose, and we're going to have a series of discussions and panels talking about programs at the bank, talking about our new RIF Resiliency Revolving Fund, and the work that the bank has done in the past year and upcoming programs, opportunities for communities and other stakeholders in the community to take advantage of. So that's going to be at the Convention Center on October 15th. And I think we're going to have registration should be going live soon for that, but all are welcome, especially to all our municipal clients across the state to see what the bank is doing.
Yeah, and with that said, we're happy to answer any questions now, Jennifer, or take them offline, however you think you want to do that.
Great. I do see one in the chat, so let me give you that before we let folks raise their hands. It looks like, let's see if I can read it here. Does having a project in the statewide coastal resilience plan help it qualify for MRP funding?
Yeah, it would certainly would. That would certainly be something that would make it a high priority item. Absolutely. So the selection process of these projects will include many of the same people who are looking at projects at the MRP program. Folks from DEM, CRMC, the Nature Conservancy. So, but having been named in the resiliency plan, I think would be a very big advantage to ranking them. So making them eligible for funding. So.
And we can make these slides available to the presentation.
Yeah, Jennifer has a copy of them, so we're happy to send it out to anybody.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so those were the two main questions. So let's open it up if anybody would like to take themselves off of mute or raise your hand via the Zoom buttons. See what other questions there are. Now they're quiet. Okay. All right. It looks like question free, but feel free to, if you do come up with a question, you can email me or Bill. We'll make sure to get any questions over to our friends at Infrastructure Bank. Mayor De Silva.
Jen, I just want to say thank you to you again and the team for putting together these workshop Wednesdays. Especially thank you to the great team at the Rhode Island Infrastructure Bank and General Treasurer. It's a pleasure working with Bill and his team on multiple projects, and I know he's always looking out for our local communities. Thank you, Bill, for the work you do day in and day out.
Sure, Mayor, and once we get that notice of funding opportunity available for the technical assistant grants, we'll send it directly to the league so you can make it available to your community. So again, if the demand is strong, we will certainly go back to the board and request additional funding if it merits. But go back and sit down with your town planners and your other folks. If there's a study you've always wanted to do on an infrastructure asset, now's the time. And we're going to make the application process very, very simple. It's going to be about two pages, and again, there's no match required, and it can be done on a rolling basis. So there's no hard deadline. We just ask that you submit something by the end of June so we could, get it processed in this fiscal year.
Fantastic.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
All right. Well, this is certainly a great opportunity, many great opportunities here that we learned about today. So thank you. I will also just remind everyone that this is being recorded, and I will post it on the league's YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to that. I feel like we should have our own podcast now. All right. So with that in mind, thank you everybody for attending. Thank you, Bill and team from the Infrastructure Bank. And yes, anybody else has questions, just let us know. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.